Good evening. I'm Ed Murrow. The name of the program is Person to Person. It isn't as spectacular, it isn't even in color, but it is live, and these informal visits occur while you are looking at them. Tonight, we will be going to visit Sid Caesar and his family, and then down to visit author Walter White and his family. We'll be ready to go in exactly 20 seconds.
Here is Noxzema, the most famous skin cream in America. This is the only leading beauty cream that's especially medicated for your skin. Medicated for a fresher, lovelier complexion. For teenage skin problems. For rough red hands. Noxzema, medicated for skin comfort, for skin beauty, presents Person to Person.
If everything had gone according to plan, Sid Caesar would probably still be playing a saxophone for a living. That's what he was doing when the war began. But by the time the war was over, Sid had already established himself as a promising young comedian. His pals in the Coast Guard went further. They thought he was great. That may or may not have been coincidence, and his specialty was satire on the Coast Guard brass. Whatever the case, Sid Caesar has come a long way in show business, and he's still very much on the move. When he isn't rehearsing or doing his own new television show, Caesar's Hour, Sid Caesar usually is home watching someone else on TV. Together with his wife, Florence, whom he married 11 years ago, and their 2 children, the Caesars live in this building off Park Avenue here in New York. We're expected, so let's go in. Evening, Sid.
Good evening, Ed.
What are you doing?
The kids were here, you know, and then all these technicians were here, and, the lights and everything.
Am I sleeping?
No, you're not sleeping yet. But I couldn't put them to sleep. We gave them a nap this afternoon, and they wanted to be on television. We couldn't keep up because everybody's here, so I told them to be on television. This is my son, Richard.
Good evening, Richard.
And may I do a trick with Richard? He wants to do it, and
Good.
As soon as we do it, he'll go to sleep, okay?
Sure, 5.
Okay, Ricky, here we go. I'm going to wind you up. And I take the key. Okay, Vicky, you were on television, okay, baby?
Yeah.
Well, Sid, maybe we could talk them to sleep. I'm told that my 8-year-old son generally goes to sleep in the middle of a broadcast that I do at 7:45.
No, not these kids. They won't go to sleep unless they're on television. Okay, and now I have my daughter, Michelle. Shelley.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine.
You sleepy?
No.
Oh, good.
No, she had a nap this afternoon, and she's only 7 years old, and she's going to go to sleep right away. You want to be on television? I said you could be, okay?
Good night.
Good night. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, here we go. Good night.
Sid, do the children ever make you work while you're at home?
No, they don't. I'm not a comedian at home, actually.
Oh, Mrs. Caesar, good evening.
Hello,
this is my wife, Miss Florence Caesar.
How are you?
Fine.
Tell me, is Sid funny at home?
Well, everybody asks me that. You know, people think that I keep laughing constantly. And it's not true. I'm not laughing all the time. Because Sid takes his work very seriously, you know. I think most comedians do, and they worry a lot, and he does. He's very serious about it, because comedy is a serious business.
Well, now, Sid, while Florence was talking...
I didn't want to interrupt him, so I...
No, neither did I. But I was thinking about something I once read by Will Rogers, when he said that you have to have a serious streak in you, or you can't see the funny side in the other fellow. Do you agree with that?
Well, I could go into a long dissertation on that, but I won't. But I will say this, that comedy is a serious business because you have to see the serious part of life, because comedy, like if somebody falls downstairs, you actually feel sorry for them. But while they're falling down the stairs, they look funny coming down. But after it's over, you go over and pick them up, naturally. So in that way, that's the way the comedy is funny. It's the spur of the moment, the absolute thing that you hit at that time, you know what I mean?
Sid, do you ever look back on the days when you were staking out a career with the saxophone?
You mean a very hungry career? Yes, I do. I was putting him, trying to get a membership in the local 408. 480?
802?
802, I'm sorry. 802. You're right, Florence. And I was a I was a doorman. You got so many cameramen, I don't know. I was a doorman at the Capitol Theater, and that's where I had to work before I could become a member of the union. And a woman came up to me one time, and she said, do I have time enough to catch the beginning of the picture if I go in and have a sandwich? So I said, well, what kind of sandwich are you going to eat? And she said, I may have a peanut and bacon sandwich. Will that be all right? And I said, well, you better have a little soda with it so the peanut butter will go down faster. And she did. And she went inside, and I kept looking through the window, and I kept on saying, 3, 2, 1. And finally I said, you're on. She came running out with half a sandwich to see the picture. And that was when I was a doorman at the Capitol Theater.
Well, Sid, television can be tough on the body, I know, or at least so I'm told. What do you do for relaxation in your spare time?
Well, I'll show you in just a moment. Florence, would you excuse me for a moment, baby?
Sure.
She's beautiful, and you got to pay attention.
Is it all right if we start planning a television program called Caesar's Wife?
Listen, it's up to you. This is my gun room. This is my hobby. I used to do a lot of hunting. I have a double-barreled Browning over and under.
12 gauge.
Yeah. And then I have a 220 Swift with a six-power scope.
Yes.
And which is actually the fastest bullet in the world, commercial-wise. Then I have a 375 Magnum and a lot of other rifles, but it's with this rifle that I killed this baby right here.
Now, tell me about that.
Well, it's a heartbreaking story because I never... Ouch! I never killed any other animal outside of this deer. And the way it happened was that I was on a stand. You know, usually other men drive and I stand, or you drive and they stand.
Yes.
But in this way, I happened to be put on a stand. And all of a sudden, this was after 9 days of looking for deer, you know what I mean? What are you moving? Stay right there. Stay right there. And then I happened to see this deer because he's still moving because I still don't believe I got him. And I just happened to, I saw him. I happened to go over a barbed wire fence, and I naturally put the safety on my gun.
Yes.
And I put the gun over the fence first, and then I went over the fence. Yeah. And then I finally saw this deer, and I said, there it is. And I finally saw it, and I tried to pull this trigger, and that's where I had buck fever. And I couldn't see it, you know. I couldn't get him in the sights, so I just put off the safe, and bang! I shot him. I ran over to him, and he got up. Then I ran back for the gun. The deer ran on, and I ran over, and I finally, when he did fall down. He fell about 100 yards from there. I ran over to him, and I put on the deer card, you know, on his horns.
Yeah.
And then after that, I spelled my name wrong. So you see, I really didn't want to kill him in the first place.
And he's still moving.
And he's still moving. And I love him. Now I want to show you something else, Ed.
Yeah.
You're following back in the living room.
Good.
Wow. I also have an interest in art. And this is my famous, not my famous, but my favorite painting. It's a Vlaming. And it's also over here, if you'll follow me down here.
I'm following you.
This is a Marini, which was given to me by an Imogene Coker, which is a very wonderful piece of sculpture, if you take a look at it.
Well, which is your favorite painting, Sid?
My favorite painting?
Yes.
This is my professional favorite painting.
Yes.
But my favorite painting is this, painted by my wife, Florence. It's a picture of our house in Westport. And I don't know how to say it, but she happened to capture it. It's not really professional, but it's it. She really captured the feeling of the whole place up there.
How did you happen to get interested in paintings in the first place?
Well, I'll tell you. I happened to read a book called Lust for Life by Irving Stone. It's about the life of Van Gogh. And through this, I happened to see a kinsmanship in art. And it's what I want to do in comedy, actually, is to give what Van Gogh or the Impressionists saw of life. That's what I want to do in comedy. Just try to give an impression and maybe exaggerate it a little bit. You know what I mean?
I think I do. Sid, how long do you rehearse for that full-hour show?
Well, we rehearse an entire week. We really go, we start, well, our show is on Monday. We take a day off on Tuesday, which the cast does, which I don't. But I go through through Wednesday, right through to Monday.
Well, Florence, from what Sid says, when he isn't rehearsing, he's pretty much of a homebody. Is that right?
Yes, he is, Ed. In fact, I'll tell you, we've always wanted to go to Europe, and 3 years ago we did. And we had it planned very carefully. We had, the tour all planned by an agency. We had it changed and altered and fixed up, reservations and everything. It was supposed to have been for 9 weeks. And we sailed over on the Liberté. We got to Paris. And we were there a few days, and, Sid wasn't too happy there. It was all, so strange, of course. And he couldn't get cold water, and he couldn't get cigars, and he just wasn't too happy. Well, finally, someone gave us tickets to the Grand Prix. It's a famous race there.
Yes.
And, we went there, and we tried to find our seats, and we never could. We showed it to the ushers there, and nobody knew where the seats were. It was all just such a mystery. We never did get to it. So Sid said, finally, he says, Florence, let's go home. And I thought he meant back to the hotel. I said, no, home to America. Home we went, and that's how much of a homebody he is.
So you came back after 3 days?
Yes.
Yeah, we went over.
3
It took us 6 days to get over, but it took us about 12 hours to get back.
Flew right back.
Sid, if you weren't Sid Caesar, the comedian, what would you like to be? What would you like to do?
Well, I'll tell you, Ed, if I wasn't Sid Caesar, the comedian, I'd like to be Albert Einstein. That's who I'd like to be. Because he's given so much to the world. And he's a great man, and I'd like to actually contribute 1/1000th as much as he has contributed to the world. And what he will give to the world will not be known for another few hundred years.
And I'd be Mrs. Einstein. That's it.
Well, I think that is something that I would like to be, too. Neither one of us are going to approach it, but... Oh, is he perspiring? This
Yeah, you got a lot of lights here, Ed.
I know. We have down here, too. Thank you very much indeed, Sid Caesar and Mrs. Caesar, for letting us come and visit you this evening.
Entirely welcome.
It's been very pleasant indeed. Do you think the children are asleep now?
I doubt it.
We hope so.
Well, we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Right.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. In just a moment, we'll go for a visit with Mr. and Mrs. Walter White.
Smooth on Noxema and your skin will feel how it tingles. It tingles.
I'm Nancy Reynolds, and that tingle tells you how wonderful and how different Noxema is. The minute you smooth greaseless Noxema on your skin, you feel a cool, refreshing, exhilarating tingle. And that's your way of knowing that this famous medicated beauty cream is starting to work its wonders for you. Think of it. In this one jar is your chance to look lovelier in just 10 days, or you'll get your money back. Now, that's quite a promise. But in scores of cases, skin doctors have proved it. And actually, thousands of women have seen how Noxema helps their skin look lovelier. That's because Noxema gives you a combination of softening, cleansing, and healing ingredients that you just can't get in any other leading beauty cream. If your skin doesn't look lovelier in just 10 days, you return the jar to Noxema Baltimore, and we'll return your money. That's how sure we are that you'll use Noxema to help protect your skin and keep it lovely.
You can look lovelier in just 10 days with Noxema. Noxema.
Now, here's Ed Murrow.
Walter White refers to himself as an author. Most of his books have been nonfiction, including his autobiography, A Man Called White. These books contain keen views of the social climate of America, and they're dedicated to the proposition that all men are brothers, a cause Walter White has espoused actively since he joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People 36 years ago. For the past 23 years, Walter White has been executive secretary of that organization. Walter White and his wife, Poppy Cannon, who is also a writer and a food editor as well, live in this 4-story house on the east side of Midtown New York City. They have lived here for 5 years, but the house itself is about 125 years old. The White home, squeezed in by other buildings, is narrow. There is space for only 2 rooms on each of the 4 floors. Contrary to the story about New Yorkers, the Whites know their neighbors very well in a kind of small-town atmosphere. Evening, Walter.
Good evening, Ed, and welcome to our house.
Thank you. Exactly where are we now?
We are in the garden now, and it's a kind of convertible garden. As you see, we have ivy all around, and we can change the garden anytime we want to. We can put in pots of chrysanthemums or what have you.
What all do you grow back there?
Well, we grow a lot of herbs, at least Poppy does, because she's interested in food, as you said. For example, we have lemon verbena and bay and tarragon and 7 different kinds of mint, I believe, and various herbs of that sort which she uses.
Well, where is the lady in charge of such matters? Could we meet Mrs. White?
I'd love to have you meet her. Let's go in and meet her, Ed. We're passing now, Ed, through the house. This is the dining room. We come into the hall here, and on our right is the entrance to the kitchen.
Well, Walter...
Ed, here is Poppy.
Evening, Poppy.
Hello, Ed.
How are you?
Come right into the kitchen.
Thank you. Walter, I know that Poppy writes about food as well as prepares it. Could we look around your domain a little, Poppy?
Oh, yes, come and see what we have.
Is this exclusively yours, or does Walter share it?
Oh, no, Walter shares it quite a lot. We have a common interest in food. I think we've been talking about food and sharing it together since the first time we met many, many years ago.
Ed, you can look at me and see the interest that I have in food. This may window of mine.
Well, you say that you share the interest in food. Is it that you like to prepare it, Poppy, and Walter likes to eat it? Is that it?
Not only that, I think both of us feel that food is rather more than something to eat, although that's the most important thing that it is. We feel that food is a kind of a universal bringer together of people. There's no better way in the world to get people to talking about what they like and who they are and what their grandmother used to make and what their wife cooks. This causes everybody to suddenly become friends, and it's the most wonderful icebreaker in the whole world. Just talk about food, and then, of course, eating it together, that's even better.
Well, I'm in strange territory. Could you show us around your kitchen a little?
Oh, I'd love to. Nothing I'd like better. Well, this thing I'm standing right near, this is a Lazy Susan, as you can see, and it's full of flavoring extracts. And so I can pick out any one just right at hand. I have them arranged alphabetically. That saves a lot of time.
Well, well, wait a minute, Poppy. How can you find the right bottle in a hurry?
Well, you start with A. If you're looking for apple blossom flavoring, then you have A, and then if you're looking for vanilla, you turn around and find V. It's all from A to V. I have no Z's down here.
Could you show us some of the utensils that you have on the wall there?
Oh, yes, I'd love to, Ed. We have utensils, I think, from about 36 countries right now. Oh, we have things from, that's an espresso from Italy, and we have a box from Haiti, and a coal pot, and over here are some saints. These are santos that I had made for me in Puerto Rico, and up there that's St. Anthony, the saint of bakers, and next to him is St. Martha, the saint of cooks. And underneath there, these, of course, are the Latin version. I think they go right back to the Lares and Penates of Rome. But underneath them is something that seems a little odd. Those are the Chinese signs of the gods. One of them says, Blessed Goddess of the Kitchen, and the other one says, Blessed God of the Kitchen. And you know, at New Year's, and according to Chinese lore, these are dabbed with honey. So, and then you burn them. And then the god goes up and says sweet things about what's happened in the household that whole year. And of course, they keep everything from burning. They keep everything tasting good. They're a marvelous thing to have on hand, you know.
But you never burned those cards, did you?
No, I'm not rich enough in Chinese gods to burn them. Maybe someday I will be.
Tell me a little about some of the things you grow in the backyard, Poppy.
Oh, we grow all kinds of herbs in the backyard, and sometimes we bring them in from the country. And we have all kinds of herbs and spices here, too. But, Ed, when you go over here, I'd like to show you some of the things I have here. These I didn't grow. These came from Syria. These are dried eggplant, believe it or not. Don't they look a little odd for eggplant?
They do.
And here's one of my prized old utensils. It's a beautiful colander. You can see the handmade handles. And then these are eggplant. No, these are okra, tiny okra, and here are larger okra. And these, of course, are dried herbs, and here's something I picked up in Athens, and I don't know the name of it. I couldn't quite understand. And let's see, over here, this is a Cape Cod cranberry scoop, and it's full of all kinds of wooden things. Here is something kind of fun. This is a Swedish betrothal bundle with all kinds of spoons and a whisk and everything for starting the young lady out on the right, in the right way. And this is a Hungarian noodle strainer. Isn't that a huge one?
It looks big enough to feed an army.
I guess it would be, if they like noodles especially. And this is a ravioli cutter. You know, you roll it along and it cuts the ravioli just... There you are, all ready to pop into the pan. And let's see, here are Turkish coffee pots. And, this is something we use quite a lot. This is a Japanese cast iron fish-shaped dish, and it's awfully good for shad roe. My husband likes shad roe very much.
Well, now, Walter, level with me. Do you like ravioli?
Unhappily, too well. That's why I've just been told I've got to take off 8 pounds if it's difficult when I come home and I have to taste these things. But it's a very pleasant trial that I have to undergo.
Well, this is certainly an amazing display in your kitchen there. Is it possible to just do old-fashioned things like scrambled eggs in that kitchen?
Oh, yes, you could do scrambled eggs, I'm sure.
Ed, obviously you haven't read Poppy's book about the bride's cookbook.
No, I haven't.
There's a whole section on cooking eggs there. I think I'll send you a copy tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. Poppy, I suppose you do part of your work here, but where do you do the rest of it?
Upstairs. Shall we go upstairs and
Yes.
see where the typewriter room is?
Yes. Walter, that overhead light there looks like a bird cage in the hall, is it?
It actually is, Ed. Poppy picked that and another one that we have here in the house, picked them up at a little shop down on 2nd Avenue, and then she had them gilded, and then she had them wired. So it literally is a bird cage, which imprisons a 50-watt bulb instead of a bird.
I wonder if we could go on upstairs.
Yes, let's go on.
And this is where Poppy does her writing, is that right?
Yes, she has her office here and, 600 or 700 cookbooks and her files and everything, so that this is a house in which we both live and work.
Well, Walter White, I know you've just finished another book. Can you tell us something about it?
Well, it's an attempt, Ed, to tell the story of the progress that we have made in the United States under the democratic system in overcoming racial and religious bigotry. And I guess it started when Poppy and I went around the world 5 years ago for Town Meeting of the Air, and everywhere we went, virtually the first question asked us was, how can you call your country a democracy as long as lynching and race prejudice and segregation continues? And my answer was simple. that we don't have a perfect democracy yet, but we can strive through the democratic process to correct some of the evils. And we have worked hard, and we are making progress, and there's been a remarkable change during the past 15 years. And that's the story of the book, in which I attempt to document the story with the hope that it will tell a truer picture of the race question in the United States.
Well, to what do you attribute this rapid change that you relate in your book?
Well, a variety of things. One is that the overwhelming majority of Negroes dislike dictatorship of any sort, left or right, and they believe in the democratic process, even when often it fails them. And they have resorted to the democratic process to correct these evils. A second thing is the faith which has been given to them by the action of the courts, particularly in the last 15 years or so, as in the recent school segregation case. A third is the pressures from outside the United States, particularly those of the two-thirds of the world's people who are not white, and also the fact that we have to fight communism and the Cold War by proving that democracy is a better way of life. And another thing is something that is very precious, what Alan Paton calls the conscience and the Constitution of America. That Americans have a yardstick, and their consciences are pricked when they are not able to live up to all of the guarantees of equality. And recently, churches and labor unions and other groups have become more interested in this. So these are the sort of things which are happening, along with the Negro's voting power and his purchasing power. Those are the things I think are the main ingredients of these changes.
Walter, I wonder if we have time to meet your two daughters, or are they down in another room?
They are in the other room. That's the room where I work.
Good evening, Cynthia.
Hello, Mr. Murrow. How are you?
Good.
And this is Claudia, Mr. Murrow.
Good evening, Mr. Murrow.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm sorry we have run out of time. I had hoped that we could talk a little this evening, but the clock has caught us up with us. Thank you very much for letting us come and visit you, Walter White and Poppy.
Thank you, Ed.
Good night.
Good night.
We'll be back in a moment.
Let me show you how to look lovelier in just 10 days, or you get your money back. It's a home beauty treatment developed by a doctor, and it's easy. All you need is medicated Noxzema and a wet face cloth. Morning and night, wash your face really clean with Noxzema and warm water. Before you make up, smooth on Noxzema as a powder base. And before bed, smooth on greaseless Noxzema. In just 10 days, your skin will look lovelier than you ever dreamed possible.
And now, here's Ed Murrow.
There are some of the people who made this program possible tonight. Next week, we will hope to go and visit with Janet Gaynor and her husband, Adrian, and also with Eugene Ormandy. And now, from person to person, good night and good luck.
Next week, Edward R. Murrow and Person to Person will be brought to you by Amoco American Oil Company, maker of famous Amoco gas. The premium gas that gives you natural power. Safe power, too, because it has no metallic deposit to be left inside your car's engine. So next week, same time, Person to Person, sponsored by American Oil Company and its Amoco dealers from Maine to Florida.